What's good, everyone? My name is Casey Crutchfield, and welcome to episode 7 of Enjoy Life. Today, we have a little bit different scenery. This is our first Zoom episode. Anyways, my guest today, he is from New York. He currently works at Barstool Sports as the Director of Licensing and Business Development, and he is known for driving growth and innovation in one of the most popular social medias with Barstool Sports. My man, Mr. Brian Fitzsimmons. How we doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yep. Is this your first time doing like a Zoom with someone all the way from Louisiana?
Yeah, from Louisiana, that's a first.
So why don't we kind of just get started and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So right now, I'm the director of licensing and business development at Barstool Sports, helping drive growth and innovation for what has become one of the most impactful digital media companies in the landscape. And it's been a thrilling ride. I've been there for almost 6 years now. So I've been there for a lot of the high growth period. From when the company got its original investment from the Chernin Group back in 2016. They had started to rapidly grow, and then I came aboard in 2018 and was fortunate enough to be a part of so many exciting events within the company. Growing the business from a content perspective, a live events perspective, merchandise perspective, licensing perspective, and it's grown into what we are today. So yeah, it's been a thrilling ride, and happy to share more stories about it.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna get into kind of like the day to day things at Barstool, but just to start off, let's get to know you a little bit. So how about we dive into your career journey and maybe kind of how you got to Barstool?
Sure. Yeah. So I graduated college. I went to Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. I graduated there in 2008. And throughout my time in college, my biggest goal was to be a beat reporter for a sports team, whether that be baseball, football, hockey, basketball, whatever. My passion was sports reporting. So I majored in media studies and took advantage of all the opportunities I could in college to help get my career off on the right foot so that I can go down that journey toward becoming a reporter one day. I graduated college and I got a job at a wire service right off the bat, and was a reporter for the NHL. And 9 months into that job, I actually was laid off along with the
Oh
rest of the
wow.
company. The company was actually purchased, and they actually liquidated the business. So I actually lost my first job 9 months into it. That was a crushing blow because I loved what I was doing. I felt like I really accelerated my path to where I want to go. It's not often that someone that wants to get into reporting, or professional reporting rather, is able to actually step into that right away. A lot of the journey for reporters goes from like you're covering high schools to colleges, and then hopefully one day you make it to the pro levels. I was able to step into that right away. So I felt like I was kind of knocked a bunch of pegs down when that happened. But it turned out to be, one of the biggest blessings in disguises, because shortly thereafter, I got a job with MSG as a managing editor, and I was on the ground floor of helping launch the first 24/7 digital and linear network dedicated solely to high school sports. It was called MSG Varsity here in the tri-state area. I spent 5 years there. I loved my time there. I learned a lot. That was the time when I really learned multimedia and started to understand how a television station operates. Um, and it was also around that time that I started to feel like my goals my goals were changing, my passions were changing, and I felt like I wanted to explore new realms of sports media. And I found that when I left for a job at AOL, when I was tasked with helping their company transform themselves from their old legacy strategy of being a portal into being an actual content creation company. So I learned a ton there and was exposed to more product people, more business development people, and that kind of shaped my interests in a way where I said my goals, instead of being a reporter now, I want to be more on the operational side of sports media, which is what I do at Barstool Sports today. So it's been a winding road, a lot of twists and turns, but I got to be honest with you, I wouldn't change a thing about it.
That's great to hear. So what would you say is some of like the brand and product expertise that you have at Barstool?
Well, I mean, any expertise. Well, first of all, nobody's an expert. I've found comfort in the fact that I don't think anybody knows what they're doing. I think everyone is just doing their best with the knowledge that they have and the circumstances around them. For me, in that vein, to me, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by so many smart people at Barstool that has allowed me over the last 6 years to become very knowledgeable in various areas of how to properly run a digital business, from a product standpoint to a brand building standpoint, marketing, content, programming, finance, all those realms I've been exposed to in such aggressive ways here, that I've been able to expand my knowledge in all those areas. And because of it, I've always said that these 6 years at Barstool has been like, me going to college all over again. The education that I've gotten, it's almost like it's like my tuition. I'm getting paid to learn how to properly run a good business. And, that's probably the main reason why I feel so blessed to have been at a place like Barstool and to have been surrounded by the people that I have.
That's awesome. So what was it like first stepping foot at Barstool? What were like some of your first impressions and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So when I was brought on to Barstool, it was at a time when they were going to launch a subscription product. So this was back in 2018. It was at a time when subscription was a real buzzword around the industry. This was around the rise. It was around the time of the rise of the athletic, so on and so forth. So when they got their initial investment from the Chernin Group, I believe it was a mandate that they wanted the company to look into what a subscription product could do for their business as another source of revenue. And it was a smart idea given how passionate and loyal the fan base is. So I was brought on to manage that little sector of the business. We got that off the ground. It was successful at the time. And around 6 months later, I was tasked with overseeing our programming as a whole. So again, this is like still very much early stages of Barstool growing into the company that it is today. They had never actually had a dedicated role for someone to kind of be like an air traffic controller for all the content that is flying around our ecosystem. So I was able to step into that role for a number of years, and then was transferred more so into overseeing our product operations and our strategic partnerships and making sure that our business is the train is staying on the tracks, so to speak. So I was able to cut my teeth in a lot of various unrelated roles here, and I think going back to our point about education, that's where a lot of my learnings have happened, is that a lot of my roles have differed so much. So yeah, I think my first impressions of Barstool was, this is going to be a good place for me to learn. Like I recognized right away, this was going to be a great breeding ground for someone like me who's always hungry to learn and has big goals for down the line.
Yeah. So Barstool is just where it's at now. I'm sure it's going to get even bigger, but I mean, everyone knows Barstool now. What do you think is kind of like the secret sauce or what makes Barstool so special compared to all the other things out there?
Yeah, I think it's the authenticity that comes across in the content. I think that we do a really good job of setting all of our different personalities, no matter what category or sector that they're their content is in, they're very passionate about those subject matters. So I think that we do a good job of setting people up for success, and our personalities, passions for their subject matter really shines through. And it's when you have that ingredient, it's jet fuel for creating communities. And when you create genuine communities in the digital space, you're actually able to then push them further down the funnel and convert into sales, and you're able to layer other businesses on top of those brands. So that's a lot of what I do. So for an example, Part of My Take is the number one sports podcast on audio platforms. And in an effort to help productize them, we create lots of merch around their brand that sells well. We created a virtual dining business around their brand called Pardon My Cheesesteak. So we have a cheesesteak business that you can order on all the food ordering third-party apps or direct. And we have over 1,600 locations around the country where people are ordering cheesesteaks as like the best game day food. And the Pardon My Take guys have really taken a liking to it. They've seamlessly integrated that into their ecosystem, and we've been able to create a new revenue stream that is layered on top of their brand. So that's just one small example of how we've been able to kind of look at the IP that we've constructed and have started to build them as if they are their own separate companies.
That's great. So before we kind of move into your like own highs and lows and lessons, being that you said that you're from New York, correct?
I'm actually
Or
from New
Connecticut,
Jersey, but yeah,
New
I work in
Jersey.
New York. Yep.
Okay. So we always see the pizza ratings. What's your favorite pizza in New York?
Favorite one in New York? It's a good question. I think I'll have to match Dave's. His favorite is John's on Bleecker.
Okay.
That's my favorite one. My favorite one near me in New Jersey is Patsy's in Patterson. I think
Okay.
Dave did a review on that. I think he gave it like a 9.1, so it hit the
That's pretty
mark.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm
that's
I'm
pretty good.
surrounded by a lot of good pizza places. I'm fortunate there.
That's awesome. So kind of looking into your career highs and lows, what was kind of your experiences of building a career throughout the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. My experience of building my career is it's a lot of low moments and a lot of high moments strung together, and I think that's where the beauty lies. It's being able to build a career when you first get out of college. I think a lot of people think that it's all linear, right? It's like you
Hmm.
start at the bottom and you work your way up all the way to the top, and and it doesn't get ugly. It's just a nice clean ride up to the top as long as you put your work in. Turns out that that's not the case at all. That a career is filled with corkscrews, disappointments, a lot of lows, but I think that those tough times make the highs even more special. I found that I would say that the lowest point for me was I was explaining that I worked at AOL, and I loved that job. I loved what I was doing. I loved what our mission was, and I loved the people I work with. AOL back in 2016 was going through a lot of acquisitions, a lot of mergers, and it resulted in thousands of layoffs, which included me and my entire department. And it took me a while to find a new job. I was actually out of work for just about 11 months, just short of a year. And this was also at a time when my wife was pregnant, and I felt like I was at that nexus of like, okay, I think this next job is going to be like the big next step for me. And I kind of felt at the time, especially with the age I was at, I was 32 at the time. I found that I started to feel like the carpet was ripped up under me. And I was thinking to myself, like, I've worked so hard in my career. I even went through a career change with like changing my goals, but I executed the steps well, I thought. And for this for this really unfortunate thing to happen and me not being able to gain momentum in any interview process and land that next big job, started to question myself. I was like, am I in the right field? Have I dug myself a hole? Do I need to start over in another career? And when you start having those types of thoughts, it definitely deteriorates your mental health. When your confidence isn't where it should be, that's when bad things start happening. So yeah, that was a very, very hard time for me. But I found, now looking back, that I needed to go through that period for me to truly, truly feel gratitude in the career that I have now. And what I've found, in my past 6 years at Barstool, is because I went through that tough time of being out of work for a year, it kind of reset my mind and refreshed myself into thinking about how it's truly special when you're in a career that you love and you feel like you're making progress toward your big goals, and you're surrounded by people that are trying to cultivate you and help you toward those goals. That's something you should never take for granted. And I found every day at Barstool, I do not take it for granted because of the lows that I experience. I'm able to further enjoy the highs that I'm experiencing, and it makes them that much more special.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, kind of discussing now that you're in a lot better of a place, you're more on the highs. What's the finding balance between work life and then, like you said, you have a wife and kids now. So,
Yep.
how do you kind of find balance within that?
It's hard. I feel like that's one of the biggest questions that any professional has. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, and it doesn't matter what age you're in. Everyone is always trying to chase that answer. How do you balance work and life? And I think people are phrasing the question wrong, and they're chasing the wrong answer. I think the way to think about it is, how do I create the life that I want, where work and life are all intertwined and I'm able to enjoy every moment that I'm in. I don't think there is an answer. I don't think there is the perfect answer to, or the perfect formula rather, to properly balancing your life and work. I think you need to create processes for yourself to ensure that you're taking care of yourself within your career, and you're taking care of the people that you're serving at work. And then you're also taking care of the people in your home, and you're taking care of yourself. And how you go about serving all those different buckets, that's a different answer for everybody. What I
Mhm.
do every day is not going to work for someone else. Every single individual is different. But I think what people need to realize is there is no balance between work and life. You just need to make sure that you're able to seamlessly service all the things that you need to, whether it be work and in life, and kind of find harmony in the chaos of what all those things present.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, just kind of, I feel like one thing that's important is keeping work at work and keeping home at home, if that makes sense. I feel like when you take home your work responsibilities, it kind of distracts you from being at home with your family, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and I also think, to build off of that, I think you get to a point where it is very difficult to leave work at work, but I think it's more of, you need to figure out how to be present in the moment. And what I mean by that is, when I leave my job for the day, I fully know that later that night, I'm probably going to have to, work on some projects that I didn't finish during the day. Problems are going to arise that I need to fix. There's a whole slew of emails that I still haven't gotten to that I need to. So I take care of that at night. So me creating this black and white, like I work during the day and I'm home at night, that doesn't really exist. But what I do, and what I think is good advice that everyone could try to apply, is when I am about to step into my front door, after a long day at work, I kind of like take a breath and I say to myself, I'm not Brian Fitzsimmons, the Barstool guy right now. I'm now a husband and I'm dad, and that's it. And I'm in that mode until my kids, are asleep, because I want to make sure that I'm present for them. And going back to what I was saying, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of the things that I need to take care of in that certain time. And then when those responsibilities are taken care of, I can then flip back to work mode later at night if I have to.
Yeah. So moving on, kind of, could you just give us your view on happiness and fulfillment, and what kind of gratitude you get by achieving, let's say, some of the goals that you have?
Goals. Like I kind of break it up into buckets. I always write, like at the beginning of each year, I always write three goals that are tied to my family, three goals that are tied to, my friends and my support system, three goals that are tied to my career, three goals that are tied to my personal finances, three goals that are tied to my health and fitness, and then three goals that are tied to creating joy. What do I do for fun? Like I put as much stock into my career bucket as I do into my creating joy bucket. Like I have big goals for this year tied to what I'm going to do at Barstool and the businesses that I'm going to build. But I also make sure that I put effort into goals such as, like, I want to make sure that I go see, my favorite football team at the stadium. I want to make sure I go to a Yankee game over the summer. I want to make sure I go to, a concert of a musical artist that I really like. Like baking in the fun and creating a really holistic view of what your world looks like when you're on your way to achieving goals. I've found that makes it a lot more fun. It makes it more real because you actually feel your goals. And I think when someone does that, it makes it seem a lot easier to achieve. And I also think that you're able to spin up and generate more gratitude when you take that approach.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So, just kind of moving on a little bit. Speak. This kind of stays in the same realm as happiness. What are like some of your personal practices for finding happiness? You kind of said like go and catch a game. Maybe include who are some of your favorite sports teams. I'm guessing it's all the New York ones.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, no, that's it, man. It's I don't I think the older I've gotten, the more I've found that you need to program the joy in your life. It's when you have a family and you have a job that is so, time consuming. Time flies by, and if you don't make time for yourself and the things that you enjoy, time's going to go by, and your mental health is not going to be where it needs to be, right? So what I try to do is make sure that I'm, hitting all the things that I need to hit that take care of me. So whether that's, going to the gym every night, to make sure that my health and fitness is in check. Make sure that, I hang out with my wife, making sure that I'm playing with my kids, making sure that I, am participating in the text chain with my friends complaining about the Jets, or, whether it's, figuring out, what's the summer vacation we're going to take. Those things are very important, and you need to program those things and actually set goals around those things in the same exact manner that you do setting goals for your career. Because in the end, those things are just as important. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, and your cup's not filled, how are you going to be able to serve others, whether it be at home or in your career? You can't. You need to make sure that your cup is filled and that you're taking care of yourself so that you feel your absolute best and you can perform for the people that you need to at home, and the people at work.
Yeah. So, just curious now. So, out of all the sports teams, which one is your favorite? Is it the Jets?
Yeah, it's tough to name one favorite. I mean, I'm a big Yankees fan, big Jets fan, the Nets, Liberty for basketball. I'm a big Devils fan for hockey, and I've gotten really into lacrosse. I love the Water Dogs in the Premier Lacrosse League. So yeah, there's a lot of sports teams that I root for. I've just that's always been who I've been. I've been a sports fan since before I could walk.
Hmm.
That's the household that I grew up in.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad and all my relatives are big sports fans. My friends are big sports fans, and now my wife is a huge sports fan, and now that it's been really fun to watch my daughters get into it too. So yeah,
Yeah.
sports is a massive part of my life, and I love that. There's so many different teams and sports that bring me joy.
Yeah, and it's same over here in Louisiana. It's basically embedded in our lives. Just a question: what, since I'm not really from New York, what makes the difference between the being a Mets fan and a Yankees fan? Is there like a certain territory, or
There's a lot of
so,
differences. I
so
don't I
how
don't
does
want to
that
list
work?
them without sounding mean. Yeah, I think, but what's funny? So I don't understand why Yankees fans hate the Mets. I'm a
Okay.
Yankees fan that does not hate the Mets. I think baseball's better when the Mets are good. Like when
Hmm.
you look at like the 2000 Subway Series, I was 14 at the time. I actually went to Game One of that series. One of my favorite memories as a sports fan. Um, Baseball's just better when both teams are great. And like back in 2015 when the Mets went to the World Series, I just thought there was so much buzz around the area because of it. Yeah, I love when the Mets are good. Don't get me wrong. When the Yankees and Mets play each other, I definitely hate them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't understand Yankees fans that actually root against the Mets from a macro level. Baseball's
Uh-huh.
just better when both teams are good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, just kind of moving on, mapping the road to maybe some long-term success. What are some of your long-term dreams and aspirations for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to all the buckets that I listed. I have big goals in whether it's for my family, my career, my health and my fitness, my personal finances, and then just things that I find fun and are my hobbies. And I think that one of the fun exercises that I do is I actually, and this actually helps me mold my goals that I set for myself every year. What I do is I take a lot of time to be thoughtful around what are my goals and what do I look like? What kind of person am I? What are the things in my life 5 years from now? And what's like the perfect version of me in 5 years? And I write all those things down, and I get very very vivid, very clear, very detailed around what are the things and what does my life look like 5 years from now. And it's inspiring to allow yourself to just dream big and just write those things down. And what I do then is I take those things and map it back to present day, 5 years. And I say to myself, what can I do in this current year to get me to that next step in year two so that I'm that much closer to that 5 year goal? So, like, for instance, I'll give you like a personal finance example. Let's say, I don't know, in 5 years, you're someone that wants to, I don't know, like save $10,000 in your personal savings account, let's say. The way that I would tackle that goal is instead of thinking like, oh, $10,000, it's a lot of money to a lot of people. And, how am I going to achieve that? Things are so expensive. I got so many bills. I got student loans. I got this, I got that. The way that I break it down is if you're allowing yourself 5 years to get to a certain goal that is really inspiring you in one little section of your life, how can you break that down into increments? All I have to do is save $2,000 in this year to ensure that I'm on the path toward that ultimate goal of saving 10 over 5. And as long as I do my part for this year and get to that 2, which is very feasible, I think that creates momentum. I think that creates discipline, and I think it keeps you inspired, and all of that I think generates happiness. So I think that's just one little example. And again, I do that with all the buckets of my life that I value most. I think of those things 5 years from now, and I reverse engineer all of those things. Like when I'm writing a goal down, there's a certain endpoint of something that I want to achieve. But what I do under that is I write 3 steps of how I can get to that goal. So you need to become very tactical and figure out what are the processes that I can put in place in my life that will help me deliver on this goal.
Yep, that's great. So, kind of going a little bit off topic, being that you're in New York, I know it's a little bit cold. It's not like that over here. What are some places that you like to kind of vacation to and kind of take a little break from work?
Well, we go to Wildwood Crest down the Jersey Shore every August. That's our favorite family trip every year. And yeah, we've been doing lots of other vacations. We went to the Bahamas this year. That was a lot
Okay,
of fun with the kids. We've gone to Hershey Park with the kids. That was fun watching them. In the park. We're going to go to Disney World for the first time this coming fall. So yeah,
that's
there's a
always
lot
exciting.
of fun stuff that we bake in, and I think it's all around centered around creating memories for your
Hmm.
kids.
Yeah. Where did y'all stay at in the Bahamas? We actually went last year. We stayed
We
at
went
the
to
Baha
Baja
Mar.
Mar. It was beautiful.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it was
It's
great. We loved it.
it's
Good
awesome.
food, good atmosphere, really kid friendly. Yeah, it was great. We were pretty bummed when we were on the plane ride home.
We funny story about that. I told it in an earlier episode. I actually ran into Dak Prescott in the Bahamas.
Nice.
They're always having stars over there. I feel like we saw him, Tracy McGrady,
Oh wow.
all kind of people.
Oh,
I
that's
think
cool. Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
run into anyone famous, but yeah, that's awesome.
but it's a beautiful place, like you said, for sure.
Yep.
So just kind of moving on. What would you say is kind of in store for the future of Barstool? Maybe.
Oh man, that's a loaded question because I think that if you were to ask me that question when I first started in 2018, I would have all the wrong answers and around what we've become. Obviously, I would have said I hope that we continue this hyper growth. I hope that we continue to build on the multiple revenue streams that we have. But I think if I were to get into specific detail of what we would become, back in 2018, I don't think I'd have the correct answers, and a lot of it is because our company is so opportunistic that I can't tell you 5 years from now what the catalyst is going to be for how we grow. I think our business has been very malleable. It's been very opportunistic. We've been able to keep up with trends. We've been able to zig and zag with the social platforms. So yeah, I can't give you a detailed answer of what exactly is going to be our bread and butter. Let's say 5 years from now, but what I can tell you is that our company's filled with personalities that really get through to their audience, and that's why we'll always remain strong and
Hmm.
always continue to grow. And my hope is that 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, longer, we continue to find new opportunities to help build around them so that their communities continue to grow.
Okay. And just wondering, because as a 22-year-old, I really don't understand like how this all this works. How do you all come across like sponsorships, like like High Noon? Do they kind of reach out to y'all, or is that something that y'all kind of reach out to them?
That's a good question. So it's a little bit of both. So we have a sales team that it's their job to identify opportunities that we have in our content ecosystem and go pitch potential partners that they feel would be a real organic and strong fit, right? But then there are also conversely, there are times where we'll come up with ideas where we feel like we could just build a certain business ourselves, and then there'll also be instances where, to your point, there will be prospects that come to us and say, "Hey, we're interested in working with you guys. What can we do?" So yeah, it's a mix of everything.
Okay. So also I know a big part of Barstool is also kind of on the gambling side. Do you like to sports bet a little bit yourself or
Yeah, so yeah, I enjoy it. I don't do it as often nowadays. So when we got purchased by Penn Entertainment, and we had a parent company, and it was our job to build the Barstool Sports book, and market that. A lot of that partnership was on my plate. I was in charge of the day to day communication between the two companies, and was kind of like the project manager of how we map out our day-to-day operations. At that time, I had never sports bet in my life, and what I realized was I need to educate myself on how this works, and I need to start understanding this ecosystem. What I really wanted to do was better understand and become an expert at how sportsbook operators build their products that tailor to the needs of fans. So what I did was I downloaded like every sports book under the sun and started playing around with them and figuring out like, oh, I like this feature, I like that feature, I don't really like this, I don't really like that. And through that, I gained an education in how good sportsbook products are built.
Mhm.
Now we are really fortunate to be working with DraftKings as their marketing partner. And yeah, we put on the best gambling content out there. I think when you take a look at our programming slate, especially in fall around college football and
Mhm.
pro football, nobody does it better than us, and we're really proud of that.
You're right. I can remember. I think this was my junior year in college. We went to an LSU Ole Miss game and the
Nice.
Barstool game day. It was
Yep.
at Fred's that day, so they were doing
Oh
the
yeah.
show. We went early, got all the way in the front. I'm trying to think who's there. We actually talked to Megan making money. She was
Yep.
there. We talked to her a little bit before the show started. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Megan's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
we had who else was there? Dave, I think, Big Cat, Brandon,
Yep.
Theo Vaughn was actually there too.
Yep.
That was a great experience. That's something I'll never forget being right there.
That's so cool you were there. Yeah, all the college football shows are great. We take a lot of pride in those for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I love about Barstool is just how like y'all are so dynamic, so wide. Like y'all have the Bussin' with the Boys going
Yep.
travel all over the country, the sports
Yep.
book, even like for the women, all the podcasts that y'all have for them.
Yep.
It's just so wide open, and I think that's really like I kind of asked you. I think that's what makes it special over there.
Yeah, our yeah, one of the real interesting things about our business is that our ecosystem has become so vast and so complex that in a way we've kind of created such a large funnel for people to get into Barstool. Like it's funny, people will say like, "Oh, I got into Barstool because of the pizza reviews." Or I got into Barstool because of the dozen trivia competition, or I got into Barstool because of Chicks in the Office, or the golf podcast or the hockey podcast. There's so many different entry points into the ecosystem, and I think
Mhm.
that has helped our business grow, because if someone starts enjoying a certain brand of ours and they get really entrenched in it, they'll start to discover other parts of our ecosystem, and then they find themselves down this deep rabbit
Yeah.
hole of so many different offerings across so many different subject matters that they enjoy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's literally something for everyone in mind over there.
Yep.
But before I kind of go into my closing segment, what would you say is your advice for those younger people who might want to come and work for Barstool? I mean, it seems like, that's kind of like the perfect thing for someone maybe my age to get into. So what would be like your advice for someone my age to kind of put their foot in the Barstool?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. Number one is if you're interested in being in the content creation realm and wanting to work at Barstool, the best thing to do is to do the job before you even get it. And it's pretty much exactly what you're doing. You've created this great podcast brand. You're churning out episodes that are really fun and engaging. I absolutely love your podcast. You know, that's
Thank
why I
you.
was so excited to come on here. You know, what you're doing is you're getting the reps and you're putting in the work and you're starting to build your audience over time. You know, that'll continue to grow. And I think that for someone that wants to work at Barstool, they should take a page out of your book and, you know, start the brand, you know, start, you know, creating content and create this breadth of archives that you can show, you know, someone like a Barstool, like a hiring manager, that like, hey, I've done this, I've grown this audience. You know, so many of our content creators before they got into Barstool had been creating their own content for years, and they were able to show, this is what I can do for you, this is how I can build an audience under your umbrella. And sure enough, that's what they've done. From a business perspective, like in my world, you know, Barstool is, on the business side, you know, I would say, you know, very traditional in the sense that, you know, the best thing that someone out of college can do is just find a job where you are going to learn the most and excel at it and just be a sponge. And the more experience that you gain and the better resume that you build toward whatever department you want to end up working in, you know, who knows? Maybe a job will open at Barstool that you will then end up being a good fit for. So yeah, I think it's just all about putting in the reps and doing the work and building yourself up to the point where you would be ready to help contribute to a place like Barstool.
That's great. That's great. So actually, I have one more question for you before I go into my last question.
Sure,
I'm actually a psychology major. I'm going into grad school right now. I kind of mentioned that in the email. Do
that's
y'all
awesome.
kind of have a like part in the business that kind of looks after mental health, or is that something that y'all really don't have like incorporated at Barstool? If that makes sense.
We don't have a specific brand dedicated to that at
Uh
this
huh.
time, but I do think that if you listen close enough to a lot of our podcasts, there are uh, a lot of instances where they touch on that very important subject matter. I'll give you one example. So Kevin Clancy, the host of KFC Radio, every now and then he comes out with these solo episodes where, yeah, you know, he talks about life. And you know, one of my favorite episodes from him was he was talking about how it's important to swim in your pool. And what he meant by that was a lot of times when you talk to someone uh, that has goals of one day owning a house, they'll always say, "Well, I want to have a house with a pool." You know, that's like, it becomes like the cool thing to have, right? It's a sign of like, you know, almost like you made it, right? If you have a pool in
Hmm.
your backyard, you made it. And what you find with those people that get a, you know, a house with a pool in the backyard, so many of those people will say, "Well, I never swim in it though." And what Kevin was talking about on this podcast was he's realized as he's gotten older, it's so important for you to swim in your pool. If you have blessings in your life, and if you're in certain situations that you've earned, you should take advantage of those things and make sure that you're feeling those things that bring you joy. You know, I think that so many things in life, when we achieve them, that over time it was exciting at first when you achieved it, and then over time it just kind of became routine and it just started to feel not so special anymore. It's important never to lose that, and you should always swim in your pool. I love that episode from Kevin. Another example of content that involved you know, mental health and personal development was the Part of My Take guys. Once a year, do an episode with Ryan Russillo and Mark Titus called the Life episode, and it's just the Part of My Take guys and Ryan Russillo and Mark Titus sit around and they just go deep into thinking about life and like kind of like what your podcast is about, is like delving deep into what creates joy, what creates happiness, how do you achieve happiness, what are the things in life that are misconceptions, what are the things that you know, that are hard, what are the things that are easy that you found as you were growing older. It's so interesting. I highly recommend you go listen to it.
No, I'm definitely gonna have to go
Those are
check it
just
out.
some instances where our talent has thoughtfully taken the time to delve into that topic, and they always deliver.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go check that one out. And I think it is important to kind of do self episodes too. I'm definitely gonna get there at one point because it kind
It's
of
hard to do.
like, yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
do because sometimes I remember like the first time I recorded an episode, it just felt so awkward. You know, no one else
Yep.
is in there. The
Yep.
camera's just kind of in front of you and it's going.
Yep. It's
But
hard to do. I mean, it's just like podcasting. I feel like
mhm,
so many people would say, "Oh, I could do a podcast. It's easy." And those people don't understand the amount of work and practice that
yes.
it takes.
I I like I told you, I came up with this idea last summer and I was like, my goal was to have it ready around January, February because the fall of my senior year, I was very busy with school, but the spring, I didn't have any actual classes. So I was
Yep.
like, all right, I can just grind this out. And obviously, I didn't get started until May because a lot of trial and error. But I think, kind of like what you touched, the trial and error made me so much better. And it really just kind of like showed myself, like, this is really what I want. Cause like, I wouldn't be spending this money for this, going back and forth, trying to figure out how this works, watching YouTube videos.
Yep.
And it's just getting better and better. I'm not perfect with it. Like you said, no one's perfect. And I'm still trying to learn how to edit, trying to do all of that. But it's kind of, I'm soaking in the beauty of it right now because I know I'll be better at it at some point.
Yep. That's it, man. It's if the sooner you figure out that enjoying the journey is the key, the better off you are. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, and I would say myself included, I think it takes a while to figure out that, like, just because you haven't gotten to that big goal of where you want to be, it doesn't mean that you have to be unhappy, right? I
Hmm.
think there's such a fine line of figuring out how you could be overly happy and filled with joy and filled with gratitude, but also not satisfied. I think people try to tie happiness and satisfied together, and
Hmm.
they couldn't be more opposite. And I think that the sooner people figure that out, I think that the happier that they'll be.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So my last question that I ask everyone, and you've definitely touched on it a lot of times. Why do you enjoy life?
I enjoy life because of that's a good question. Give
Yeah,
me a
and it's a
second.
broad question, so take your time for sure.
I enjoy life because I think of the possibilities. I love the idea that every day could bring you to something totally unexpected and something great. Um, and I think that comes from all different forms. You can get that from your kids. You can get that from your spouse or your partner. You can get that from work. You can get that from one of your friends. There's possibilities and unexpected joys that come from every day. And I think being surprised with those things and enjoying those things makes life worth it. And I've found too that being able to go through life and understanding that it is a blank canvas. You can become anything that you want to become. I think there's a lot of power into that. And I think that it's something we shouldn't take for granted. You can
Hmm.
make yourself whoever you want to be. You just got to be able to put in the work to do those things. I think that if you're someone that isn't afraid to put in the work, that journey you put yourself on, I think creates a ton of joy, and I think is probably the best part of life is that you can create what you want. You can create the life that you want, and you have the power to do all of it.
I think that was a great answer, Brian. Just everything you kind of gave for me today, I think it's going to resonate well with the audience. Good advice, especially for the younger people to maybe get a good advice on what you gave throughout the episode. But with that being said, I just want to thank you so much again for coming through. It really means the world to me. You don't even understand. Uh,
My pleasure, Casey. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much again for having me. This was awesome.
no problem. And maybe we can work out something in the future. Maybe you can come back on. We could
I'd love that.
collaborate again.
I would love that. Let me know.
All right, for sure. And with that being said, y'all have a great day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We're going to keep on pushing and giving y'all the best content. Y'all have a great day or night, however you're watching this. God bless you.